your way through it a little bit.
Hi, I'm Jackie Reid and welcome to Lethal's Last Word for round 18. What a blockbuster we have in store for us on Friday night at Etihad Stadium. Essendon versus Hawthorn. Lee Matthews, you're a legend of the Hawks. Do you still dislike the arch rivals?
Well, the last 2 years I played in 84-85, they beat us in the two grand finals. But I think there's other Hawthorn people maybe dislike Essendon a little more than I probably do.
Well, let's take a look at the last 3 weeks for these two. Except for the Hawks' old stumbling block, the Geelong Football Club, They're both in pretty good form.
Well, I guess the key one is back in round 15, of course. That's when Joe Watson broke his collarbone. They won that game and then they beat the Bulldogs and the Giants, two teams towards the bottom of the ladder. Now they're playing a good team, a top-level team without Joe Watson. That's going to be a big test. And Hawthorn, their form's been pretty good all year. Of course, Geelong's the only team that's beaten them.
Well, let's take a look at the key players for the match. Beginning with Essendon, you've gone with Brendan Goddard.
Well, particularly when Joe Watson's out of the team. And Goddard's got some size and some bulk, and he needs to get his hands dirty in and around the clearances, I reckon. He's always a bit of a receiver and kicker from my point of view, but he averages, say, 3 clearances a game. But again, with Watson out of the team, he has to be getting in tight and maybe winning his 5 or 6 clearances. So I hope that he actually plays a slightly different role. He's not just a receiver and kicker, but he has to be a ball winner and to generate the forward thrust for Essendon.
Has he become the competition's best recruit from another club this season?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say he has. Brett Maloney's been good, Brian Lake's been good, Kurt Tippett, of course, is just starting to play for the Swans the last few weeks. But I would think he should be, because he was the high-priced marquee recruit, so he should be good.
Well, let's take a look at Hawthorn's key player, and you want to talk about Cyril Rioli. He dominated last time these two sides played. He got the 3 Brownlow votes, had 21 touches, 7 clearances and 9 tackles.
Yeah, fantastic last time they played. But this year there's a lot of upside, I reckon, for Hawthorn if they can keep Cyril Rioli on his feet, fit and well. As we know, he missed 8 weeks with a bad hamstring injury. This is his 4th game back. Now, when you do a really bad hamstring injury, you almost subconsciously don't allow yourself to sprint hard and to really accelerate, particularly when he's had a few problems with that kind of injury earlier in his career. So if he can get back to his peak form, he'll be a magnificent asset to Hawthorn.
Well, let's move on to the key tactic, and you're an admirer of the way Hawthorn can vary that forward setup.
Well, we have a look at that setup. Now, the top 4 there, that's 4 of the top 20 in the competition, and Jared Ruffhead this year has just been he's almost not the recruit of the year, almost the most improved player of the year from 212 to 213. He's been magnificent. Franklin's back this week. Luke Bruce, Gunston and Burgoyne and Rioli can get in the goals as well. So all of those players are really good. I mean, he's almost been one of the players of the year, Ruff. He's kicked his 50 goals. He can relieve in the ruck if they need him to. He's got his mobility and agility back. And, well, Lance Franklin hasn't he done some special things against Essendon at the MCG, and so he's been really good. Luke Bruce, now he's an interesting player. He's had 32 goal assists as well, so he's a really interesting player as that. And Gunston, he often will play almost the 4th tall at different points of time, and he's been a really good accurate converter as well. So they've got a good group that goals can come from a lot of sources.
With so much power up forward, do you think that the Bombers will be a bit reluctant to move Jake Carlisle?
It's going to be hard. Fletcher's out injured, and so you've got Hale, who's very tall, Ruffhead, who's very tall, and then you've probably got Franklin. So on that basis, certainly one of Hurley or Carlisle has to be in defence at all points of time.
All right, last word. Who's going to win this one?
Oh, well, Hawthorn's in this week. Mitchell and Franklin, they're a good team anyway. Watson out for Essendon. I'm going for the Hawks.
So that's Lethal's last word on Essendon versus Hawthorn. This week's Sunday twilight match is at the SCG, where the Swans are host to Richmond. And Lee, the Tigers are up and about, but this is another big test for Damien Hardwick's men. Yeah,
well, they roll the Swans. All of a sudden, they're on the fringe of the top 4. Yeah, so it's a really big task for them. A real big reward if they can get the 4 points.
Well, let's take a look at the last 3 weeks for both of these sides.
Well, interesting. I mean, Giants, Melbourne, they won easily. But Eagles haven't been great, but beating the Eagles in Perth is still a good win. Richmond, that was great last week. Fremantle, they out-defended Fremantle. I was really pleased that, from Richmond's point of view, they kept Fremantle to 2 goals at half-time, so their defensive mechanisms were in place.
Well, let's look at the key stat for this game, and it's based on the strength of Sydney's, that contested possessions, but it does show that if you can beat the Swans in that area like Port Adelaide did in round 13, you can bring them down, can't you?
That's certainly the starting point. Hard to do, we know that, but Port Adelaide got over over the top of them a few weeks back by beating them in contested possession. So it's always the starting point whenever you play, but the Swans are so good in this area. That is certainly the stat that you have to do well to be in the game.
You've got a couple of key matchups for this match, and the first one we're going to have a look at is the captain of the Tigers, Trent Cotchin, up against the co-captain of the Sydney Swans, Kieran Jack. And Cotchin actually leads his side in that important stat, the contested possessions.
Yeah, well, that's why he's so important. Now, Ryan O'Keefe might take that matchup, but the Swans, Kieran Jack, they're both really good players. Now, Cotchin is the best contested ball winner, Richmond's best clearance player, and he really came back to a bit of the kind of form in 2012. Really decisive last week. But Kieran Jack, I mean, the thing with the Swans midfielders, they all can play one-on-one any particular time they're given that task. They run hard forward, but they're prepared to take an opponent. So just possibly the two captains might end up playing directly opposed to each other. Really good player, Kieran Jack.
Well, Jack's become one of the more elite players in the AFL. He's now ranked in the top 10 of the official AFL player rankings.
Yeah, well, he's a really honest player. That's what I'm saying. The Swans midfield, unless you run forward, run back and prepared to play one-on-one, you don't really get a game for the Swans midfield. So he's a really good player.
Well, let's go to the other key matchup you want to chat about. The Tigers key back Alex Rance taking on the big man, Kurt Tippett.
Well, it was interesting last week. He probably played his best offensive game he's probably ever played. 30 disposals last week, Rance. He did the job on Chris Mayne, but he seemed to be just, I guess, the linchpin for the defence last week. But when he has to play on a really big man, he's not a really big, strong defender. Now, we might only be talking of Travis Cloke, who is a little bit of a monster in terms of his marking ability, but Kurt Tippett, of course, is the same. 200 centimetres, big, strong man. So that's certainly, I think, the Achilles heel, but they haven't got a really big, powerful defender, Richmond, so Rance will be outmatched in terms of height, but hopefully for the Tigers you'll do the job.
OK, Lee, last word. Who's going to win this one?
Oh, I never tip against the Swans in Sydney. They're a really honest team, so I reckon they'll win.
OK, let's go to the rest of your tips for round 18, and beginning with the big one, Essendon versus Hawthorn.
Well, with the teams, I reckon they're about a 7 out of 10 Hawthorn to beat Essendon tomorrow, the Friday night, so I'll tip them. Now, bit of a 50-50 game, but I thought the Suns, they were terrific when they beat Collingwood last week, so I'm going to go for the Suns again at Metricon Stadium. Collingwood, beat the Giants. They'll beat them every time. We'll start with the Kangaroos first again. Melbourne have improved the last month, but Kangaroos should win. Collingwood should beat the Giants. Down at Geelong, St Kilda have been just pretty competitive lately too, but Geelong will win down there, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, they'd win down there. The Dockers against the Crows, the Dockers should win that. I think that they're a bit of an 8 out of 10 chance for me. Now, Port Lion, bit of a 50-50 game, but in Adelaide, I'm going to go for the Power. The Eagles should beat the Bulldogs. Again, the Bulldogs have improved a little bit too. Some of those bottom few teams have been a little bit more competitive the last month, but go for the Eagles over there, and we'll go for the Swans to beat Richmond. I'd give that about a 6 out of 10. They're a really good chance, the Tigers, but we'll go for the Swans.
Well, thank you once again,
Thanks,
Lee.
Jack.
Thanks for joining us on Lethal's Last Word. Enjoy all the action in round 18, and we'll be back next week. Goodbye.